Let's give Greg and Sonali their wrap for the years of service they've put in. Now, Greg Alchin from All Equal is an award-winning inclusive design specialist, a speaker, an activist, and an inclusive technology expert, if not enthusiast, I think I've got to say. Now, Sonali from Royal Institute Deafblind Children, Alternative Formats. She's the manager of the Alternative Format publications at the RIDBC. She's the president of the Roundtable on Information Access for People with Print Disabilities. She's passionate about access to information through both traditional, new, and also emerging technologies. So thank you to both of you. This discussion is a discussion on accessible formats and technology, including a live Q&A. So if you'd like to both give us an update initially, and then we'll dive in.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everybody. What I'm going to do is just share my screen. Like Daniel, I would have first, of course, like to, in the spirit of reconciliation, acknowledge traditional custodians of country through New South Wales and their connections to land, sea and community. And I pay my respect to their elders past, present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Now, I'm meeting on Wiradjuri country up here in Bathurst and Orange area. So looking forward to being part of this with you today. What I want to start out with is that before we go looking, and we went through, Sonali and I and Emma and Janet looked at all the questions, I want to come back and go, we've got to look what's in the box. Look what comes with your device. And so in all of the devices, and it doesn't matter what your platform, I have a passion for Apple and for Microsoft, but we can talk about that at a different time. Part of the thing is that they've got so much stuff in their machines all the time. And you can go to the Apple site or the Microsoft site, and I'm just here on the Apple accessibility site at the moment, and you'll go and see amazing stories. One of those in particular, and if I clicked on the stories tab, and I won't play it now, is a guy called Carlos, and he's a drummer and he plays in a band, and it's his story about how he's using the inbuilt tools to be an amazing drummer, and Carlos is blind. So hop onto the site and go and watch Carlos's story. It's really, really cool. But as you may or may not have heard us when we're chatting in the background, what I love about both companies is this continued investment in accessibility, and there's more and more features. So we were just chatting about iOS 14, which has just come out, and iPad OS 14, and how there is a stack of really, really good features. So VoiceOver's got even smarter, and how it can now recognize descriptions better in images and photos. It's smarter. What it also does is that it can add text within images, and it can also use its own inbuilt artificial intelligence on the chip. If the app that you're using and the developer hasn't met proper guidelines on adding proper labels to things, it can have a go at it and then label that button and describe that to you. And that's a game changer, because what it's going is, we know we'd love app developers to do it properly, but we will help them and we will do it on the fly. And that's a really, really cool feature. But that's just on the Apple side alone. It's one of the reasons why you need to really get to know what's in your box, because you've got a stack of features that are in there. The same with Microsoft. Now, I'm now working full-time within Department of Education. I'm back on as their lead on disability employment and inclusion. So I'll just give a big shout out back to Daniel too, because we use them all the time as a way of supporting staff with disabilities. But coming back to here, Microsoft has some brilliant stuff from a vision perspective. Now, as you've heard me talk before, one of the things that Narrator is their inbuilt screen reader, and it's come on leaps and bounds. Their goal is to come up to VoiceOver, and there's continual work. And so what we're saying is, hey guys, look, it works with Office 365. It works with all the online tools. It works in that ecosystem. So in New South Wales government, we're going, look, use those tools first before you look to expensive third-party add-ons, because you've got some really great tools there in the box. And that's where you start. Play in there, because you're also going to get from both Apple and Microsoft, they have a dedicated disability helpline, and with a local number here in Australia that you can ring to get additional support. And they have staff that are trained to support people with disabilities. That's something that you just can't put a value on, and that's really, really cool. They also have, like Apple, are doing some great things with their accessibility checker that's coming up to date. And that's one of the things we've been training staff on, because we go, just like when you create a document, you spell check, you grammar check, but you accessibility check it before it leaves your desk and you share it on. And that's been a really positive thing. Microsoft have some really cool things too. They have their Accessibility Fundamentals course, and it's a free online course that you can all take. So it talks about an intro to disability and accessibility, and we're starting to promote that within the department. Learning about accessibility features, but also how to create accessible content. And then a little bit more about digital accessibility. So what we're seeing is that we've got these tools that we can use as end users, but also we can talk to staff and go, hey, you're creating barriers because you're creating inaccessible content. Here's some training that you can access for free that'll help you do your job better, but also enable me to participate on the same basis. And there's some really, really great things that you want to have a look at. Microsoft also have their MFST enable. It's on YouTube, but it's also their Twitter site. And there's some great videos there that I would recommend to people. Particularly, they've got ones on inclusive hiring. And so you can go and have a look at support on there for interviews of a person with a vision impairment, and how the organizations can better support people, which is absolutely great. If I changed gears, when we go out of what comes straight out of the box, the next step, looking at the apps that we might use, there's some really great information around the ecosystem. So like when I go to the iMore website, I can see, just like I can when I go onto the iTunes site, apps that highlight that work with VoiceOver really, really well. And you'll see that there's a stack of them like Skype and BrainPop and Ariadne, Instapaper, Dropbox, all those tools that you can use for work and learning and recreation. But going to have a look at some of those apps. The same as I go to Apple Viz all the time when I'm trying to find out what are people using out there in the community, whether it's not only on their Mac or their phone, but also on their Apple Watch. Because that's the other thing, is how do I use that to do inclusive payments? You've heard me talk about that in previous years, but I want this going to these communities of practice enables me to get real-time information from people, and it's a great thing to go to. What I want to do though is talk about MacGyver. You go, hang on. What's the old MacGyver TV show got to do with what we're talking about today with technology? Now, whether you watch the original series or the new one, what was great about MacGyver was that he would always find different hacks to solve his problems. And that's what we want to talk about, is some of the hacks, because what we see are really, really expensive devices. We go, guys, there's simple life hacks out there that you can be part of. Now, some of you were talking about like the Onyx, and we're looking at those big CCTVs. Now they're $2,800. I can go to JCar and, for instance, and I can buy a $199 USB microscope, which has lights, stands, everything. Plug that into my iPad or to my Surface Pro or whatever I'm using, and I can essentially emulate that device. $199 versus $2,800, something that's portable, something that's not. It's a life hack, and it's thinking about some of those great life hacks out there. There's a stack of others. This isn't the only one, of course. Look, if you go onto Amazon and you typed in USB digital microscopes, I can scroll down and you can see, hey, there's this really cool one. It has a little stand and it's only $49. It also comes, and it does 1,000 times magnification. It also has a whole range of little LED lights in the center of it there, so it's really, really bright. Light, portable, something that is just, you can pick up and run with. There's also Bluetooth ones, which are great as well. But before we start to look at those expensive bespoke devices, I would thoroughly recommend to people, please look at how you can hack things, how you can be a MacGyver, because you'll find a stack of things there that you can use. A simple example, and I was talking with Sonali about this the other day, you'll see on the screen what happened is somebody's grabbed a lady's compact, and all they've done is they've used Velcro to put it onto the back of their laptop or the back of their iPad, and they're using that as a display device so that they can mirror a book and bring it up onto the screen and then use that for demonstration purposes. But that's great, because here you are, rather than chucking out an empty compact, you're now reusing that and upscaling it and using it as a life hack, which I think is just out of this world. Now, we talked about music quickly, and I know that Sonali is going to come back and talk about that one. But there's some really, some of my favorites, because there's a stack out there, and it really depends upon what platform you're on. So for me, I quite like playing with Symphony on the iPhone and the iPad. It's accessible, works really nicely, and it depends on what sort of music you're trying to do, because are you learning music notation? Are you trying to do music synths and raps? Because in which case I say, hey, just go straight to GarageBand. But have a look at some of those things, but there's a stack of others too. So you can go into things like Noteflight, which is another really, really good app. You can also flick into things such as Flat for education. There's a stack of other ones that are out there. It all depends, and you'll see that Flat, which goes through a website that's for teachers and students, works with Google Classroom, Office 365. It works with Canvas, Moodle, a whole range of other different technologies. But there's a lot out there for you that you can do. But most importantly, start with what's in your box and look at the life hacks before you spend money on something that you don't need to spend money on. Sonali, I'll throw it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. I'm always amazed when I listen to Greg speak. Not only is he very knowledgeable, he's a great speaker as well. So Greg, I want to share my screen too, because if people would have heard that I did create a presentation this morning.
It's all yours. Just hit the share screen button down the bottom. You're on off and racing.
Okay. So you're sharing. So good. I'm not going to spend, is that okay, Greg? You can see that?
I can do.
Fantastic. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about mainstream versus assistive technology, because Greg has already spoken about it. But what has come to the forefront in these times, at least in 2020, with online learning, is that technology certainly has played a really important role in access to learning for our students. And there have been a lot of hacks with mainstream technology and assistive technology. Plus, with Braille users, there have been reports of Braille pages having to be quarantined for 4 days before use. All in all, technology has come to the forefront, and there have been a lot of hacks which are out there, which have been useful for our students. But one exciting development this year has been that the Keynote, which is the world's first 360 degrees multi-line Braille display, has arrived in Australia. So there are some very nice podcasts. You could, if you Google it, you should be able to listen to it. But this is my passion now. Along with technology, what uses technology if you don't have accessible formats? If you have a website which is not accessible, no amount of screen reader, the best screen reader you use, or if it doesn't cater for low vision, contrast, and so on, technology will not play such an important part. So accessible formats are also important along with technology. And lastly, I'm going to share with you a few cool technologies that I came across. So let's talk about accessible formats. And like Greg said before, what I'm trying to do, there have been a few questions which have come up in these sessions. I am going to try to answer it as a part of the presentation. So hope that goes seamlessly. So what formats are accessible? As you know, Braille is an accessible format along with tactile graphics, large font for low vision users, and accessible e-text. So when we talk about e-text, it could be Word, HTML, HTML5, and EPUB 3s. And we could go on forever on any of these. But all of these sites, we might say accessible, it is only as good as how you format those. And what about PDFs, you might ask? Why have I not included PDFs? Accessibility of PDFs depends on a lot of factors. PDFs are really not accessible for mobile devices. So on your mobile, the font is too small. You can't access PDFs on mobile. But along with that, PDFs can come in various size and forms. Like you could have a PDF image, which is not accessible to a screen reader at all. Or you might have a PDF which is partially accessible, which is not tagged. So when you're talking about tagging, tagging is something which shows assistive technologies, what the structure of the PDF and navigational elements in the PDF. And these could be in the form of headings, it could be lists, paragraph, images, alternative text for images, rows and columns and cells of a table, and so on. But if you use Acrobat DC and the newer technology, Adobe has come up with tools for tagging. And this is what is called auto tagging. So this was one of the questions that was asked, that how about auto tagging? Yes, auto tagging is definitely a useful tool, but with auto tagging, you still have about three things which could go wrong. Auto tagging can tag decorative images, which really don't need to be tagged. It can tag your lists in a PDF as paragraphs, which is not really the right thing to do. And along with that, the headings can be tagged as images when they're actually heading levels. So PDFs do need a lot of remediation and manual tagging to make it really accessible. So what is really important is advocating for accessible formats, because along with technology is great. We've come a long way, but we also want those formats to go with the technology to be accessible. Now, both Greg and I are involved with the Australian Inclusive Publishing Initiative, which is an organization to promote access to and improve access to printed material in Australia. So Greg has actually written a document for publishers, which aids them, gives them the business case for accessible publishing. Definitely, if you go to the AIPI website, you should definitely have a look at that. So we are working really, really hard with all publishers, authors, editors, indexers, to tell them about accessibility and get them to embed accessibility in the publishing workflow. And along with that, we have also worked with the Institute of Professional Editors. This organization is actually an organization from Australia, New Zealand, which sets standards for editing practice, sorry. What does this mean? Editors are, before the book is published, it has to go through editors, and editors look for corrections to be made within the text. we have, and I have spent some time with editors educating them with accessibility. Now they have incorporated accessibility standards and they look for accessibility when they're editing material. At the moment, there is an accessibility initiative working party which is being formed for all school teachers and authors of school textbooks, so that when they write books, it is taking accessibility in mind, looking at the language, looking at screen reader accessibility, looking at low vision, contrast, clutter, and so on. And lastly, I want to tell you the initiative by Digital Transformation Agency. And this is a federal government agency which has been set up to provide advice to all government agencies to make their websites or digital access easier, and for the digital services to be inclusive. Now, DTA has in its style manual looked at accessibility and for footers, for all text, and this is a comprehensive document for all government digital documents. So fantastic work going on there. Now, just a quick one, technological disruptors. Artificial intelligence is one of them. One of the, Greg just spoke about iOS 14 and the update to tagging images and recognizing images. Office 365 has a similar feature which uses, which you can actually tag images, not the most accurate, but it's at least serves as a reminder for us to look through it as an accessibility check. Similarly, you have an Android app called Facing Emotions, which takes pictures of emojis, and there's a voice output telling you what the emoji is about. I found this field of view AI technology for car windows for visual impaired people really interesting, and I'm going to show a video of it shortly. As Greg is working on, working with Microsoft, Microsoft Research has come up with a really interesting research, and they've come up with a cane troller. So this cane troller is enabling people with visual impairments to navigate virtual reality with haptic and auditory cane simulation. Please go, if you do a Google cane troller, you will come up with a very fantastic resource and wonderful to see. Lastly is sonification. What has happened with COVID times is all our researchers have had some free time. And so a lot of resources all over the globe have come together with a sonification world chat, showcasing all the things that are happening in the sonification field. So sonification is using an audio output for speech, non-speech audio output to represent data. Definitely can be used for graphs and access to graphics, plus access to space. So if you Google sonification, you will have a lot of resources. I'm happy to share them. Now, Michael, I see you're here. I was going to show a 1-minute video. Do you want me to continue, or should we take questions?
I think let's take some questions because we're time challenged today, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a few questions I'm very desperate to pass on from the community. So the first one's directed at Greg. What is your digital hack for simple, for simple quality and large viewing of things that are beyond 2 to 3 meters?
What you need to do, just simply, guys, is just get a good digital, like a digital camera. So it just depends upon the level of zoom, because you can either pair that via Bluetooth with your device or via USB. And so like your base model cameras, your small ones, because I'm thinking about how kids can put them in their backpack for school. They'll start at 8 megapixels for about, 8 times zoom, which is your base I'd go to for about 149. You go up to 10 times zoom for 229. like that's just on a simple little Canon. You can go to like a 20 times zoom, which is huge, for about $300-400, but that's still a hell of a lot cheaper than what you can do with third-party pieces. The issue, of course, is going to be just buy a little tripod to put it on, so it's nice and stable, sitting on the desk in the classroom. You can buy something like a Gorilla Pod, or just a little camera tripod. The mini ones, they're about $30, and just use that. So yes, it means that a person with low vision can sit up the back of the classroom, hang out with all the other naughty kids, and still see the board.
Great. Sonali, for you, what are your thoughts on keynote, especially regarding cost and the comment, "I'd heard the prototype was quite strangely loud"?
Well, yes, that's right. I've heard a podcast on Canute and seen it in operation. Certainly, it's almost like using there is a buzzing sound every time a line is refreshed. But even then, I think Canute will have its place. Of course, I could definitely think of proofreaders, or even you're on your own, Canute and Braille users, Canute would definitely be an option. I know with one of the proofreaders I work with who proofreads Braille, and Michelle, you know Tristan, she is really, really keen to get a Canute.
Now, can I ask the dummies question? What is Canute?
Canute is a multi-line Braille display. So at the moment, the Braille displays that we have you can only show one line, and it can have, depending on the cells, different cells. In Canute, it's 9 lines and 40 cells. So which is
like
about
the Kindle of Braille displays.
It's a Braille display. Yep.
Okay, great. And for both of you, here's a quite involved question. Is machine learning and AI being used by apps and industry to validate and improve services at the user level, accessibility-wise, rather than driving the challenge constantly at editors and content developers' behaviour?
It's being used for both. You're seeing it, for instance, from a developer's perspective. You're seeing AI happening. If I'm in the Apple developer tool, it's automatically going, hey, you're building an app. We notice you've got some buttons. It'll say, can we label those for you? You're starting to see stuff happening in that area there. Yes, you're using AI in testing, but you're also starting to see AI and machine learning happening all the time. Like if you're using Siri, you're using AI and machine learning. There are multiple levels of it. But yes, it's happening everywhere, and it's becoming quite seamless.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to get in trouble if I run much later. Greg and Sonali, really thank you very much for your time.